Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news. Is Obi Martin the miracle that Ruben Amorim needs, or is it ridiculous to be focusing on a lad that was 16 2 months ago? Manchester United in crisis, well that would be a very boring statement for a morning show, wouldn't it? But lots to talk about. We've been linked with another centre-back, £55 million. I've got a question to ask you about that this morning actually. Also, more detail comes out in relation to the way INEOS are running this club into the ground. Is there a sinister side to this as well? I certainly want to unpick that as well. We've got Spurs on Sunday. Does it even matter? Is it that relevant? Is it really all about the cups now? And could things get worse at Manchester United? Or are they actually logically going to get better? Lots to get into this morning. Welcome to the show. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm working on a really interesting video that we should be able to get out for you either 2 o'clock or 7 a.m. tomorrow. Really interesting. I just need to finish some stuff on it and speak to a couple of people, but really enjoying those actually. You know, we did the Glazer one this week. We did the explanation of PSR 2 weeks ago, the landlocked land last week. I actually would just say this. I don't know. I mean, I don't look everywhere, but I would say a shout out to all of the fan content creators, aggregators, journalists. I don't see anybody really talking about the problems about Man United apart from us and obviously the Webby and O'Neill video yesterday. It's quite weird how so many people, like this morning, it's all about Obi Martin this, Obi Martin that, which is fine, but the club's in a shithole. And I don't know why. What are you waiting for? Maybe you're going to get an interview from the club or something. I mean, I don't know why people are quiet. Maybe they don't understand it. Maybe it's above their IQ level. I don't know. But it is getting quite sinister how there are so many people out there with so many opinions and nobody's really talking about it. We'll get into that in a little bit though, because I want to say something about Gary Neville and Simon Jordan. They've been that's something there. But I think that let's start off with Obi Martin. Let's start off with Amorim needs a miracle. And let's start off with the fact that here we are in... and also, I want to say this as well. We've been linked to this Bournemouth centre-back. It was only 19 years old. Dean Huijsen. I didn't realise he was only 19. You know, I'd been linked to him, so we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But just a word of warning, Arsenal have lost Havertz and Chelsea have lost Nicholas Jackson in the first 2 weeks of February. They didn't do transfer activity. This thing tends to come in threes, and I'm just very worried that we're going to get a big injury. And the same thing will be said. This is why we should have done some activity in January, because it's bit Arsenal on the arse and it's bit Chelsea on the arse. Hopefully it won't be our turn next because we need to get lucky with the injuries, of course. But look, I think that last night, Obi Martin, this striker, this very talented young striker that we've brought in from Arsenal, scored a hat-trick for the youth team against Chelsea. Everybody's talking about him again, quite rightly. I mean, look, the talent is there. I mean, he's a big unit in relation to the size of him that you could probably very much throw him in physically anyway. But he's scoring a ridiculous amount of goals. He was scoring a ridiculous amount of goals at Arsenal. And a lot of people are saying throw him in. So I think that... I know we've already had Martinez, but I think we can cover Martinez off. Yeah. And Andrew, don't say, are you blind? Some people are blind. It's offensive. And I'm wearing glasses, so I might have an eye stigma or something like that. So just be careful, Andrew. It is 2025, and I can take offence at comments like that. You can basically take offence at anything these days. On a serious note, and that is a serious note, I know that Martinez has been injured, but I feel that we can cover that off. What I'm talking about is, like, Arsenal don't have a striker. Chelsea don't have a striker. The position I'm talking about, if we get an injury, is going to be in the number 10 position or in the midfield, where I think we should have actually done something, i.e. we let Rashford, Anthony go and we didn't replace him. That's what I'm talking about. Talking about Obi Martin, though, look, fantastic talent. We know this anyway. And a lot of people this morning are saying, let's throw him into the team. I would be as excited as anybody else about this, but in a sense, just taking a step back for a moment, because I can start with the positive and say, I genuinely think that this lad's got generational potential. I know that's ridiculous, and I'm leaving myself open to absolute pelters, but I genuinely think if you just do a little bit of homework, he has got, and even before he'd stepped foot into Manchester United, he had that reputation ahead of him anyway. So very, very, very exciting player. And of course, Wayne Rooney was playing Premier League football at 16 for Everton. So it's not really beyond the realms of possibility that he could play football for Manchester United at any point now. He is very, very talented. But there was always going to be a but. If we were Manchester United and we were in Liverpool's position and we were creating loads of chances and we were in a, we had loads of leaders and everything was positive, I would be like, this is a perfect opportunity to get this young striker playing football with Manchester United in a low pressure environment with lots of leaders in a team that's creating lots of chances. My concern is that does this not reflect the situation at Manchester United that, and look, let me predate this by saying the lad is extremely talented. I've just said he's got generational talent potential. A lot of people have it. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but this lad is really, really exciting. So I understand. I feel the same. If he was in a match day squad, he must be knocking on the door at some point. But does it not demonstrate the situation we're in as a football club, that we are actually sat here this morning saying, help us, Obi Martin, you're our only hope. And if you know the Star Wars reference there, that was very good, wasn't it? But is that not incredible as to how bad the situation is at this football club, that we're effectively asking a just 17-year-old to come in and help us and rescue us? That, to me, is the only negative I have to this, is that I've played the game. I've seen how we've developed the likes of Beckham and Scholes, etc. And it certainly wasn't the club's on its arse, not far off relegation, to be honest, playing shit football. Please come into the team and rescue us. It's a pressure I would rather not throw a young player into, if I'm being completely honest, because I get scared of what our fan base is like. And he has got a lot of potential, and he also got a lot of hype around him. And if we give him a game up front against, I don't know, Everton or Spurs or something like that, and we do what we do with Xerxes and Rasmus and Cavani and everyone else, and we don't give him any service, people will go, he's a load of shit. Like people say it about Haaland all the time. If Haaland doesn't score in a game, he's a load of shit. But the context will be they didn't get any service to him. What is the worst thing about this Manchester United side? Creating chances. So let's throw in a 17-year-old up front, and what happens when he doesn't get the chances? That's what worries me. So that's the thing that sort of concerns me about it, is that I want to see him given a chance, but it does highlight the problem at Man United at the moment, that we're sort of pinning our hopes on a miracle, really, aren't we? I mean, look, I think if we were a team that was creating chances, I would be like, yeah. And people say, well, I'm not even gonna humour it with a comment. Like, just because you put a world-class striker up front for Man United doesn't mean we're going to suddenly start creating chances. But he is knocking on the door, and it's a dilemma for Amorim, isn't it? Because realistically, our age is just a number. If you're ready, you're ready, and he can't be that far off. But what I'm trying to say is that don't be surprised if Ruben Amorim doesn't use him for the reasons I've just said there, because he might look at it and go, I don't want to burn this young player when in a year's time I can bring him in. He'll still be, 17 basically. I'm talking next season, and the team will be in a better position to accommodate him. I don't know whether I want to throw him into this environment at the moment, because it's unfair on a young player to have that expectation. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but we've got a lot of young players coming through at Manchester United at the moment. And look, every part of me agrees. He's got to be knocking on the door of a first-team call-up. But all I'm saying is we should temper that, because the expectation would be incredible. And I've already seen a lot of people on social media this morning talking about get him in the team. He's gonna cook. And I'm like, we don't have any ingredients to cook for a start. What's he gonna cook? So yeah, I think that's the thing that worries me a little bit. He was only 16 actually. He was only 17 in November as well. So look, what a future. If he can keep doing what he's doing, and he's going to grow even more physically, and he's going to get better and better at the game, it's another very exciting young player at Manchester United. Daz says, unfortunately, it looks like the club is now looking at youngsters to be mentally strong and pull us through the mud, says Daz. Look, I've seen... Look, when Wayne Rooney came to Manchester United, he had a lot of experienced players around him. When David Beckham and Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes and Gary Neville came through, they had a lot of experienced players around them. When Marcus Rashford came through, he didn't really have that. And look at where his career is now. So I think there is a lesson there from our own history that when you bring young players through, you do need to have an environment to feed them, because if they become the top player, it can be a problem. And they need to be nurtured. They need to be allowed to have bad games. They need to come in and out of the team. You know, they don't need to be playing every week. There's a lot of things that need to be managed with that. You know me, if I'm being completely honest, I would throw him in tomorrow. I'd throw him in on Sunday, because I just think it's such a bad time at Man United at the moment, and it would be a huge positive. So for me, I would throw him in. But what I'm saying is, I always say this, if we throw him in and he doesn't get any service and he doesn't play particularly well because of that, nobody should be criticising it and saying, oh, he's a flop. Let the rivals talk shit. I'm just saying that if it does happen, remember the environment and remember the story. I saw a lot of players fail moving to the first team from the seconds when I was playing in Australia. Loan him to a championship team or a lower EPL team, says Jamie McLaren. Thank you very much for your super chat this morning, Jamie. And also, it's bad to throw a 17-year-old into the lion's den. It could hurt him, says Anto. And Ray Carl Brown Amori says, I see people talk about Yamal and say, what's the difference really? People can't see the difference. Barcelona create and we don't. Well, also, Yamal's a winger. Like, Yamal is not there to be judged on goals. Yamal can get the ball. You can get the ball to the winger. You take a player on. It's a bit like Garnacho, isn't it? Garnacho was never judged on goals. Garnacho was exciting because you got the ball to him and something would happen. It might go out for a goal kick, might go over the bar, might be an assist, might be a goal. Fabregas played football for Arsenal as a teenager, but he was surrounded by good players and he's playing centre midfield. Mainu, again, was playing football for Man United at 18, but he's playing centre midfield. If you're playing centre forward, if the best striker in the world, Erling Haaland, can be shut out because he's not getting any service, then a 17-year-old up front for Man United could get shut out. And that's the difference between Obi Martin, Yamal, Mainu, or anybody else. You're going to put him in a position where he has to get service. And at Man United, we know that that's a big problem. So that's all I'm saying is that it's not that we shouldn't do it. It's just that if we do it, we've got to go into it eyes open that a lot of things would have to go right. Morning, Mark. Hope you're well. Glinios out. Cyril out. Loving the content, says T. Honestly, still haven't seen a player look like Mason Greenwood did in the academy. Obi is not ready. Don't think Ruben's given Xerxes a fair chance with starts either, says Class of 99. I feel like fans are looking for a star boy. If the manager feels he's ready, then we'll support him, but no reason to throw him in right now, says John. Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that's the way to go. What formation did the youths play, says Andrew Staunton. I don't watch youth football. I don't have time for it. So if anyone can answer that in the chat. I know under Ten Hag and Van Gaal, there was a desire to replicate the first team's formation. I don't know whether that's changed with the current youth setup. I don't know whether we are playing a 3-4-3 or not, but I presume a lot of you watched it last night. Hi, Mark. Hope you enjoyed your Tommy last night. If you know, you know, says Andy Atherton. The youth were great last night, but this must not distract us from Glazers out. And it's a huge jump from seconds to the first team. And Devon says, is it a dumb question to ask what tactics they play in the youth? No, I didn't watch it, so I can't answer it. So someone in the chat will. We need to be beating Spurs now, Mark says Enjoy Writing. And Andy Atherton says, the hardest position to throw a young player into this side is a striker. We must be careful not to destroy his confidence in the graveyard shift. It's funnily enough, actually, I want to move on because we've got lots to talk about. But I think Andy Atherton and a couple of you make a really good point there. Apparently they play a 4-3-3 in the youth setup, so they're not replicating Amorim's system there at the moment. My daughter plays in an academy, under 16 level, and she's a midfielder. She can play centre-back, she can play on the wing, but at the start of the season, they had an injury crisis up front. They had no forwards. So they had this tournament in Warwick where all the youth teams came down, Man United, Arsenal, or everyone came and played. And they put her up front, and it was like 20-minute games. And they were getting beat, and she was just up front with nothing going on, and she was getting really frustrated. And I spoke to her on the drive home, and she was just like, I absolutely hated that. I want to be in the midfield. I want to make a difference. I want to get involved, and I'm up front. I'm running around. I'm trying to press. People aren't pressing with me. I'm not getting any service. The ball comes up to me, and it's a long ball. I'm up against two big centre-backs. And I said, look, at the end of the day, welcome to being a striker. The glory of scoring the goals puts you on the on the headlines, but it can also be one of the horriblest jobs to do, because you are so reliant on quality. You're so reliant on service, and in the modern game, there aren't any strikers that can pick the ball up on the halfway line, skip past 4 or 5 players, and put it in the top corner. It can be a thankless task to play up front. It is a really, I don't know whether it's the hardest position to play, but psychologically it's hard, because you do a lot of running for nothing if you don't get service. And you don't get any credit for that, whether you're Erling Haaland, Joshua Zirkzee, or Harry Kane. If you play in a team where you're not getting any service, it doesn't mean you're not running. You'll automatically get a low score as well. So it is a tough gig in a team that's not getting any service. And that for me is the number one thing Man United need to resolve. I mean, I've said this before. Even last night I was reading about another striker that United were going for. Should they go for Gyökeres? Should they go for Osimhen in the summer? And I sort of like, I know we need an experienced striker. I know we need to sign an experienced striker. It's absolutely obvious that we do need that. We've got a lot of young players who play up front, and an experienced striker would help us a lot. But it does worry me that if the budget's so high and we spend a lot of the budget on a striker, are we actually solving the creativity issues? I don't want to get into another Bruno Fernandes conversation, but the creativity in that team is just not good enough, if you have to ask me. Give Obi 10 to 20 minutes, says Keel. We need to fast track the player who is assisting Obi Martin, says Sahil. Thank you very much for that. Okay, well anyway, nice positive story to start off with. I think the overarching thing for me is that we have got a really exciting talent there. But he's not the only one. There are some really exciting talents coming through at Manchester United at the moment anyway. So I think that we really do... I mean, look, there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you this morning. First of all, I want to talk about this link to the Bournemouth centre-back. I'm going to absolutely get his name wrong, because that's what I do. He's 19 years of age. I think he only came to Bournemouth at the start of last season. And he's called Dean Huijsen, 19 years of age. Man United have been linked to him. He's got a 55 million release clause. I just want to ask the question, really. How do Man United how you know, like we were talking yesterday about Lukeba, and we've spoken about Quenda, and we've spoken about Gyökeres. Where is this money coming from? You know, like we're being linked to the Bournemouth centre-back now. Like, does anybody know where the money is actually coming from? That's just something I would say. I mean, look, he looks like a really good player. He looks very, very exciting, but where are we getting this money from? Like, the last I heard, we're buying a centre-back, a winger, a number 10, and a striker, and a holding midfielder, and they're all going to cost at least 50 million quid. And I'm sort of like, where are we getting this money from? And ultimately, is it just a load of shit? You know. Nadir says, when is the Spurs preview? I don't know, mate. We're not playing till Sunday. It's not really... it might be at 2 o'clock today. I've got there's a video I'm working on that I think is really good, but I might put it out in the morning and do the preview if nothing else breaks. So yeah, I mean, look, very, very interesting that we've been linked to that, but I'm not 100% sure where we get this money from, if I'm being honest with you, because I just can't. I just can't see it. I really, really can't. I think that we're always in that era at the moment where February to the end of March, Man United can just get linked to anybody, and you ask the question, how are we going to afford it? And it's like, doesn't matter. As long as we're linked to, we've been linked to them, that's all that matters. We're not actually going to buy them. Just put it out there. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, I don't really get where or how that's going to happen, if I'm being completely honest. Also, I want to ask, do you think, I mean, these are going to be themes for the morning show. Do you think things are going to get worse at Manchester United, or they're going to get better? I spoke to a few fans in recent days and a couple of people who are close to the club. And I've tried to ask questions that aren't going to get people in trouble in relation to the latter. And I know for a fact that the morale in Man United is rock bottom. And of course it's going to be. You're going to work and you don't know whether you're going to get the sack. So morale is very, very low. In the fan base, I think there is some very realistic people and there are some deluded people out there who, you know, some of which are this morning talking about putting Obi Martin up front against Spurs and everything's going to be fine. Desperates hope, but, you know, as we just discussed there, that there's issues with doing that as much as I'd like to do that. There are factors at play. Do you think it's going to get better or do you think it's going to get worse? I have a theory here I want to share with you. I think there's absolutely... I want to explain this in the right way. I think things are going to get better, but worse. And what I mean by that is that there is no way that Manchester United are a team that should be finishing in the bottom half of the table. I think that next season we could finish as high as 5th or 6th. But that is still shit for Manchester United. And that's what I mean. I think things will get better but worse. Because where we are at the moment is incredibly bad. Really, really bad. But if we go and finish 5th or 6th next year, people will say, oh yeah, that's better. But I don't think that is better. I think that's absolutely abysmal for Manchester United. So I think we will get better because the position we are in at the moment is just incredibly ridiculous. Deserved, but ridiculous. I think things will get better next season and we'll end up like 5th or 6th, I think. And everyone will start going, oh yeah, United are on the way back. Look where they finished last season. But that'll be it. We'll flatline. I don't think we're going to start going in the top 4 and challenging for titles. So for me, that is getting worse because we still are going to be continuing this 11-year journey of not being able to be where we should be. But I think some people will see that as getting better. But I don't think it is getting better. I don't think that's the standards of this football club to be outside the top 4. But I mean, we're not going to finish in the bottom half again next season. I mean, we shouldn't be there this year. We deserve to be, but we shouldn't be there next year. But I do think things will get better in that sense, but not better in the way that we want it to. Andy Atherton says, in any sport, especially football, confidence plays a huge part in performance. This is particularly important while developing youth players, says Andy Atherton. Well, look, just talking about confidence there, I mean, I read something, I think it was INEOS or something like that, a very interesting article about the redundancies. And I thought it was incredible, actually, because it was, I mean, we've sort of touched on it, and it's like the morale at Man United is really low. I don't know whether the morale is low in the team, in the coaching staff. Because here's a question for you. Man United have already sacked 250 people and they're about to sack another 200 people. Who are they? Who are these people? Do we have this information? I mean, Simon Jordan was on the radio yesterday saying, you know, agreeing with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's cutting the fat. You know, you walk in there and there's people daydreaming out the window, thinking about what they're going to do when they get home. People who want to work from home, where you can work from home permanently, you're sacked. And I thought, what an arrogant and insulting way to analyse the sacking of 400 people at Manchester United. Because I don't know who these people are. I mean, not only are they being sacked, they're now being ridiculed by Simon Jordan on national radio that they're lazy, useless people as well. So not only are they on, you know, the poverty line because they've been sacked, Simon Jordan's putting it out there that they're probably lazy and useless as well. I mean, not, you know, you've had one kick in the nuts, there's another one. I mean, how does he know who they are? I've been told and I've read that some of these people are being sacked for efficiency, not because they're bad at the job, just because they've gone, we think that person can also incorporate your job as well. We're not sure. Or some roles have just been got rid of all completely. They're like, we don't want that role anymore. So, you know, if you had 3 groundsmen cutting the grass, they might get rid of 2 and say, one guy you can work harder now. It's It's incredibly insulting, actually, because out of all these hundreds of people that have been sacked, we've not heard a story off any of them, probably because they've signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, as part of their redundancies. But, I mean, again, it's just, we shouldn't have to do this. We're a fan content place where people come for a chat. Where's the journalism on this? Like, hundreds of people have been sacked. From what positions have they been sacked? It's mad. It's absolutely mad that hundreds of people are being sacked and we don't actually have a list of where they were sacked from and what impact that has on the club. It's incredible. But the point I was going to make is that the average British wage in the UK is £37,000 a year. So let's say £40,000 a year. What is 9 times 4? 36. So what is 9 times the average yearly wage in the UK of 40,000? It's £360,000, isn't it? So sacking 9 people, you will save what Casemiro earns in a week. 9 times 40,000 is 360,000, which is basically what Casemiro is on a week. So for every 9 people we've sacked, we pay Casemiro that a week to sit on his arse and put a tweet out that Man United are playing today. 9 times 50, well, 9 times, I mean, I can't even do this now. I can't even do this. So if we sack 9 people, we'll save in a year what we'd earn in a week from Casemiro. So if 1 week's wages of Casemiro is 9 people's salary, do the maths on what we'd save on a year if we got rid of Casemiro and how many jobs it would save. It'd be 90 every 10 weeks times 5. 450 jobs. Basically, that's it. Casemiro's wage in a year would cover those 450 jobs. And you know what makes me laugh? And the reason I mention that, you got Simon Jordan and INEOS talking about cuts and getting rid of and its efficiency and getting rid of the fat. The hypocrisy is hilarious. So these people who we don't even know who they are, we're labeling them in the media as wasters and lazy. We've literally got a guy who sits on the bench every week, doesn't get used, and is earning a yearly wage that would cover 450 of those people's wages. How is this not being spoken about more? So we've got rid of 450 people and put them out of work to keep Casemiro sat on his fucking arse. I mean, and look, so Jim Radcliffe might say, well, I didn't give INEOS, it wasn't me who signed Casemiro. No, it wasn't you that signed Casemiro, but it was you that paid Newcastle £3 million in compensation for Dan Ashworth, and then probably paid him the same in compensation when he left. That's 6 million. How many jobs would that be that you wasted with a stupid appointment? You know, work out how many people could have kept the job if you'd done that right. You also gave Ten Hag a contract and then sacked him and brought Amorim in at a cost of about 25 million. So you've cost us 30 million in a year. Oh, that's 450 people's jobs saved as well, is it? I mean, I don't understand actually why this has to be discussed on the United Stand and on the Webby and O'Neill channel and the 58. Why is this not being discussed on a bigger level, right? It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me. And look, I've said that about Simon Jordan as well. I'm going to say it about Gary Neville and the overlap as well. I cannot believe that is happening at his football club, and he can't stop tweeting about politics over the last couple of years to get the Labour Party in, and he won't shut up about the Glazers before INEOS came in. I put the overlap on today. The topics they had. Remembering Dennis Law, yeah, brilliant. Remembering Goodison Park, because it's obviously the last Merseyside derby, brilliant, yeah. Kai Havertz's hamstring injury, that came out yesterday, brilliant. So they've obviously filmed it in the last 24 hours. Nothing, absolutely nothing about people losing their jobs and the state of Manchester United. And I'm like, they have such a big platform. I mean, as if Roy Keane doesn't want to talk about that, or Ian Wright, or Carragher, or Jill Scott. Why is it that's not being discussed on there? You know, this is somebody that has been massively vocal about the club he loves, and they're doing that, and he's keeping his gob shut. Client fucking YouTube channels now. Why is it not being discussed? It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting the way this club is being run, and it doesn't make any sense. And look, maybe some of those people do need to lose their job. I don't know, but the bottom line is it stinks of hypocrisy, and the club is on its arse, and it's being run into the ground, and it's almost like, I don't know, maybe we're not getting the email. Maybe we're not getting the, you know, but it just feels like you're singing in the darkness at the moment. Nobody's talking about it. They're all just, oh, well, you know, this, that, and the other. And it's like, it's scary. Andy Atherton says, in any other sport, I've done that one from Andy Atherton. Thank you very much for that. Anyway, we move on. But I'd love to know, I would love to know who these people are getting sacked. And I hate to think that in the world of football as well, that stories are being suppressed because of mates' rates. We had it with Solskjaer. We had it with the ex-players and Solskjaer. They spent 2 years slagging Mourinho off every week on TV. Solskjaer came in, did a worse job. I'm not going to speak about Ollie because he's a mate. And you straight away go, well, look, the one thing you know you're going to get in this community and other communities is that you might not like it, but you will get honest opinion. You might not like the opinion, but we'll cover everything. I just think we have a media these days that has become such... It's like politics. It's like politics. They spin, they avoid, they answer different questions. Why has that come into football? And why has that come into Manchester United? Why have we got journalists that are terrified of telling a true story because they might get banned from a press conference? Why have we got ex-players that will talk about something and then something happens and then they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about it now? I mean, it's propaganda. It's propaganda. That's what we're facing. We're Manchester United. We're a working class club. We're a people's club. People say what they think because they care. We've now become something very, very sinister at this football club. Like people are staying quiet on things. Why? Who's feathered your nest? What's the reason? Why am I looking on the overlap at all these topics and Man United sack more people's not there? They're talking about Havertz. That was announced yesterday that he had an injury. They're talking about Goodison Park. That was yesterday. These job cuts were announced on Tuesday. They had that information and they haven't spoken about it in a massive show with more topics than a newspaper. With all these sackings, the union won't step in, says Sins. Ian and Jill mentioned it, and Neville said moving on. Seriously? Well, I don't know whether he did. I can't comment on that. New Zealand All Blacks are in a fight with INEOS over cuts. They cut funds, and the All Blacks are probably going to take INEOS to court. Slow sports news there, Ryan. We are fully aware of that. Andy Atherton says, surely our PR team know how frustrated our fans are at the moment. Don't ignore us, include us. Without fans, you don't have a club, says Andy Atherton. Will Jim get 100% of the club eventually, says Alex. No, don't see that. Don't think it's part of his plan. I'm sure Kate would have sacked by INEOS, says Aki. And King Kong says, we have 1,100 staff members. How many do Real Madrid have, or even Man City? Last checked, it's 500, so we need these cuts, says King Kong. That's a different conversation, mate. That's a different conversation. That's just spin. That is a completely different conversation. You know, if Man United have got double the amount of staff members of Man City, then obviously you might want to look at that. But it doesn't actually make sense to use that as an excuse, because to sack 500 people in 1 year is disgusting. The damage that does to morale and performance is huge, and also you've just wasted £30 million on sacking a manager, sacking a director of football, recruiting that same director of football, allowing Casemiro and Luke Shaw to sit on their arse, earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. It's a bad message. We're a working club. We're a working club with roots in working class people. We're not a millionaires club. We're not Fulham. We're not Chelsea. Manchester United's roots are a working person's club. So when you sack people who are on similar wages to us to keep multimillionaires sat on their arse, that doesn't go down well with people. We relate to those people who are on 35, 40 grand a year more than we do to these multimillionaires who sit on their arse and do fuck all in a Man United shirt. So you make a fair business point, but we're not business people. We're Manchester United, and I'm not okay with 450 people being made redundant while the rich cats sit there counting their hundreds of thousands of pounds that they earn. Morally, it's not right. And also, it will damage morale within the club. Well, it has damaged morale in the football club. They hate the way the club's being run at the moment. But you can't access anybody. I can't go and sit on the overlap next to Gary Neville and say, why aren't you talking about this sort of stuff? This is right up your street, Gary. You're the football prime minister. You're the people's person. You're massively about this social awareness. I've read your tweets. Look, Gary Neville is about this. He is about regeneration of the area. He's built his whole bloody business around being from Manchester, regenerating the area, housing, education. I'm not taking the piss. He is. He's got a bloody university. He is about all this. So I'm stunned that he's being quiet about people that he probably knows who've been there from when he was there, losing their jobs. So INEOS and the Glazers, and we've not mentioned the Glazers, can get away with it. I'm just very surprised by it. Really very surprised by it. Anyway, let's go back to football. A few people this morning, I hadn't seen this comment, but apparently Paul Scholes has said something else, that he's not been impressed by Lenny Yoro, and it's caused a lot of response on, people have been mentioning feet and stuff, which I think is just bang out of order. Somebody messaged me with the clip and said, can you mention it on the morning show? So shout out to Keith. What are my thoughts on Paul Scholes saying, and look, this is the brilliant thing, isn't it? I've just said there, the overlap have a responsibility to talk about what's going on at Man United. And I think it looks odd when you don't. Really, really odd, because fingers will be pointed at Neville, who's doing the regeneration with the INEOS, and people will be saying, well, look, he can't be trusted because he won't speak openly about the problems at Man United because he's jeopardised. Conversely, I can't ignore it when people say, can you talk about this? So, look, Paul Scholes is entitled to his own opinion. And I couldn't believe his assessment of De Ligt before De Ligt had even played for the club. And I can't really understand where he's coming on from about Lenny Yoro, who won't be 20 till November. I think he's 19 at the moment. So I look at Lenny Yoro. He was 18 when we bought him. He got a bad injury and didn't really start playing till December. It's now only the middle of February. And he's really 2 months into his Man United career at 19. I think whether it's Paul Scholes or Paul Smith, it matters not. I've said it so many times, I just have to repeat it. If we're judging young players off 2 months and a few good performances and bad performances, we're mad. We're absolutely mad. If I judged Paul Scholes at 20, I'd have probably said he wasn't going to make it. And he went on to be a midfielder when I thought he was a striker, and one of the best players England have ever produced in that position. So to be saying that a 19-year-old ain't up to it, I mean, Rio Ferdinand was shit at 19. He was. I mean, was he at West Ham at 19? Then he went to Leeds. His game had more holes than a hedgehog's pillow. The potential was definitely there and people were talking about it, but he was nowhere near the player he was at 24, 25. So Lenny Yoro is going to make mistakes. Lenny Yoro is going to look a bit raw, and I think he does. But I also think I can see the potential there, and it's going to take a little bit of time. He's not going to come in and play like Van Dijk at 19. He's not going to have that consistency. He's not going to have that development to his game yet. So I don't understand it when people criticise Mainu or Yoro or Garnacho in the sense that they might have had a bad game, and you can say they've had a bad game, but to take it any more than that, I just think it would be, they've had a bad game, they need to be better than that, but they're young and they've got time to get better and learn from that, and that should be it. But I think people want to make their minds up about, and this is the danger about Obi Martin, isn't it? You throw him into this mess, he doesn't score a goal in 5 games and doesn't get any service, and then people will be going, yeah, flop, overrated, load of shit. And that's not going to be the story, is it? Because I think until a player is 22, 23, I mean, look at Collier. I think Collier's 22 next. People act like he's 18. I act like he's 18 because he's only breaking into the team. Like, Collier could be one of the best English midfielders by the time he's 25, but he's comparably very, he's not as young as Mainu and Yoro. So I just think we always go back to the same word, patience, don't we? And I think when it comes to these players, I think we do need to be patient. Do you think the Glazers will go eventually, says Alex? I absolutely do not think the Glazers are going anywhere. I mean, I did that video yesterday. I don't think there's anything going on there. Garfield's given us a super chat. You know someone sacked who would stay secret, but you interview them, see what's going on. Mate, this is what I mean. There's hundreds of people who've been sacked, and no journalist has got any information of where. Look, I honestly would like to know from all these people. I mean, look, maybe this is very niche, but I would like to know from all these people that have been sacked. I would love Man United to release a list of all the areas they've been sacked from, and we could sort of figure it out ourselves then as to why they've been sacked and whether they needed to be sacked. But it's not fair of Simon Jordan to be out on national radio basically saying, if you want to work from home, you can work from home permanently, you're sacked. You've got people looking out the window who, are thinking about going home. You don't know, you haven't got a bloody clue, mate. You don't work at Man United. You haven't got a bloody clue who's been sacked. And look, I've never been made redundant. And some of you may not have been and some of you may have, but I know people who have. It's a horrible feeling when you're let go. And the last thing you want as well as that, when you've got all the worries of finding a new job in a market that's very difficult to find jobs, the last thing you want is people basically calling you lazy or insinuating that you deserve to lose your job. The way I look at it is, in the absence of any other information, I don't think these people who've been sacked deserve the sack. I just think that INEOS have gone in and they want to save money everywhere that they can. I mean, they're saving £40,000 a year from a charity. I mean, £40,000 a year. Casemiro earns more than that in a day. So when they're saving, when they're obsessed about £40,000 a year, they're definitely going to look at 2 people who do a good job and say, we only need 1 of you. It's efficiency savings. It's not your shit at your job as far as I'm concerned. Ex-players compare their good times to the bad times of current players. If they compare their bad times, then the topic gets closed. Waste of time, says Aki. Making staff cuts is a standard business motto, says Mario. I don't see how that cutting staff will knock down the Glazers' debts. United are income feeder for the club for their NFL team, says Mario. Keel says, I partly agree with Scholes. We need experience more than potential. No, I appreciate it. Keel, I hesitated there because sometimes I jump in. I appreciate your honesty, and I think you might be coming from where Scholes is coming from as well. I think Paul Scholes is saying that United do need more experience and Lenny Yoro is raw. I agree with that. But there is also, I'm right in the sense that he's going to be raw because he's 19. If Paul Scholes had said, I've not been impressed with Yoro because he's a work in progress and United need an experienced centre-back, that's a better way of putting it. But then my response to you, Keel, and to Paul Scholes would be, where are we getting this experienced 26-year-old centre-back that's coming into a Man United side when we are where we are? We've got no money and we're shit. So where is this experienced centre-back we're going to get? Because the only experienced centre-backs we're going to bring in at the moment are going to be people from Fulham. You know, like Anderson. And he ain't a Man United player, is he? In the sense of winning a title. So we're sort of in this position at the moment where we can't afford the quality of an experienced player to come in and play holding midfielder or number 10 or centre-back. We can't access those players. We haven't got the money and they wouldn't come. So our only choice is to go for up-and-coming players. So I agree with the observation that we need more experienced players, but they don't grow on trees. You can't just go and get them, and we don't have the money for them either. So we have to go young, which is another thing about this whole project is it's so dependent on the development of young players, isn't it? Dorgu is young, Yoro is young, this Leon lad is young, Obi Martin is young, Garnacho is young, Mainu is young, Xerxes is young, Rasmus is young. There's a lot of young players that have got to come through. And then I look at the experienced players that are going to nurture them, and there's a real absence of them. And that's why the Martinez injury is a blow as well, because he's a player that you would want to be there. Yeah. Chunky Chunk says, no one over 25. INEOS already said it. Mate, I've got a really interesting video coming up. And effectively, the way INEOS are behaving at Manchester United is really interesting because it's completely opposite to how they behaved at Nice. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in anyway. Really enjoyed the show this morning. 8 o'clock show back tonight because there's no football. So we've got an 8 o'clock show tonight. And we'll have a 2 o'clock show as well. It'll either be the preview or this video I'm working on. But we'll see what happens with it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care. Have a good day and stay safe.